we finished good. We finished great. Excellent. Roman numeral 5. Okay, let's see if we can make some progress. Okay, so this is Torah has guidance not just of what goes into her mouth, but also what comes out of her mouth. Okay, the things that we say, and there are a whole series of mitzvot that govern how we speak. And the first letter A. Okay, these are all various forms of like gossip or slander, and there are actually 3 categories. The first is called, it's not on here, it's called Wolkenfeld, which is just saying something about, gossiping about somebody else for no purpose. This is frowned upon in the Torah. Like, you shouldn't be talking about other people, talking about ideas, talking about things that are helpful and useful. You shouldn't be sharing gossip about other people for no reason. It could be harmful to them in some way. And even if not harmful, even if it's not derogatory information, it's best not to talk about other people. You know, there's a saying, great people discuss ideas, and mediocre people discuss events, and low people talk about other people. Okay? Don't be like that. Don't talk about other people. Try to elevate your conversation beyond that. So that's just talking about, that's called Wolkenfeld. That's just gossip, kind of the sharing of information about others that there's no reason to share, that the other person has no need to know, no right to know. So keep it to yourself. One step beyond that is Lashon Hara, which is information that is true but derogatory or damaging. It's forbidden to share information that is true if it is derogatory or damaging about someone else. It could be a nickname you have for them that's embarrassing, some history about them, oh, so-and-so, I remember when they were, that's what they did to me, or did you hear about that about them, or, it's damaging or derogatory, it should not be shared. Even if it's true. Being true is not an excuse for sharing derogatory or damaging information about another person. If it's false, that rises to the level of motzi shema. That's like real, that's what we call slander. That's sharing lies about other people. That is harmful lies. That's obviously even worse, right? When you're sharing lies about other people.
What if you share something that is not necessarily, for example, if someone is pregnant and not everyone knows yet, and you say, I heard she's pregnant.
So that would be that first category of Wolkenfeld, of sort of sharing worthless gossip. What's the reason why you're sharing that? Like, why are you talking about somebody else? It's not your story to tell, it's her story to tell when she's good and ready for when she's pregnant. So why are you talking about information like that, right? So it's private. Now, there is a phrase, okay, there's a toilet. There is sometimes a need to share information about somebody else. Okay, if somebody's saying, listen, I'm looking for, you recommend a good plumber, and you can say, oh, don't go to Bob the plumber, he's terrible, right? That's derogatory and it's damaging, but you need a plumber, and I'm giving, so therefore I'm obligated to give you helpful information. And there's a toilet, there's a use, there's a legitimate purpose of you having that information, even if it's derogatory or damaging. So that's important also, right? So we, or if, Elizabeth is pregnant, let's try to, be nicer to her in X, Y, and Z way. That's a toilet, right? And you're not just sharing this information for the sake of gossiping. You're sharing information because it's really important that you know that she's pregnant. Like that's, let's maybe not have her, be the one to, make the sangria today or something. Let's pick someone else, okay? I don't know, right? So like there could be if there's a use for sharing information, then it becomes permissible and even obligatory. I think there are communities where people are not sensitive at all about these concerns and share gossip and malicious information with others without having a second thought. And by and large, I think religious Jewish communities are really feel different, our experience is different because of these concerns. There is a risk in the other direction of not sharing information that really should be shared about dangerous teachers, about bad plumbers, whatever it might be, people, fraudulent individuals operating in the community who are causing harm. And sometimes there's a reluctance to share information about them because people are worried about violating these prohibitions. But if there's a toilet, if there's a need to know, then you have to share. So I guess that's sort of the question. If you ask yourself, why am I telling this story? Why am I sharing this information? Does this person need to hear it? And or am I just, it's fun to share derogatory information with other people. And there's even a risk of sharing positive information about somebody else. It's going to lead, someone to not, oh, I love, the rabbi's terrific at the synagogue, he's great, and to say that, oh, he's not so good, I don't like him. Like if you say, since you praise somebody, it can lead to a kind of cynical response, or the other person feels, I feel if somebody praises someone, and I don't feel so great about them, I have such a desire to say, oh, they're not so great, I'm not impressed by them, they did this terrible thing, 3 years ago that I think is much more important than what you're praising them for. I have a strong desire to like itch to like kind of like be cynical and like knock them down when you hear somebody praised who I don't feel deserves that praise. That's like, that for me is very strong. So again, so if you're in that position of saying something, be careful what you say, because even saying something positive, if there's really no need to say it, it could actually do more harm than good if it leads somebody else to try to take them down a notch. Okay? And I would just say again, like just concern for these types of ways of speech is something that really characterizes Orthodox Jewish communities in ways that have never been observant, pious Orthodox communities really feel different because of these things and other types of human beings with whom I interacted. I was once, already 20 years ago, I was with in yeshiva at the time and hanging out with some friends, and we were just talking about other people and in a way that violated these rules. And one of our classmates said, "Hey guys, this is not the right way to talk." And we were like, "Oh yeah," we just stopped instantly. It was really one of the most memorable moments in my life, because it was a moment of just quick, simple, elegant, not awkward, moral, like critique and correction, and we all just like got it instantly. And I was like, "Oh yeah, of course," and without feeling embarrassed or being defensive or resentful, we just like pivoted our conversation very quickly. And that was because we were yeshivas. We were a group of young people, idealistic young people who were studying Torah full time, within that framework of respecting these rules. And so he was able to say, "Guys, that's not how we should be talking," and we just instantly stopped. So that was like a very powerful moment. Okay, 2, sheker. Not allowed to lie. Okay, it maybe seems obvious. Torah says actually in sheker shechach should be very far away from lying. Okay, like not even stay clear from falsehood. Try to be like known for integrity and say only things that are true and speak with integrity. You are allowed to lie for the sake of peace. So someone says, "Do you like my shoes?" The answer is?
Of course, they're beautiful.
Exactly. You just tell them that? Yeah. I didn't know that when I first got married.
We're very honest.
Yeah.
With each other.
Yeah.
So should we not? Yeah. I guess.
Okay.
We shouldn't be.
Yeah. Whatever.
What if he says, "Is my haircut too short?" Should I say? Is it okay to say, "Oh, I like it better a little longer"?
Obviously, every relationship.
Because it's true.
Every relationship has its own contour.
Yeah.
I'm not going to.
I like it better shorter, actually.
I'm not offering relationship. You have to pay extra for the relationship advice. So
It's a separate topic.
I think it depends on the contours of the relationship, of course, but I think in general one finds himself sometimes in situations where being truthful will hurt somebody's feelings, and in those situations, Judaism says it's best to lie in order to not to hurt someone's feelings. And there are examples actually in the Torah itself when God tells Abraham and Sarah that Sarah's going to have a baby. Sarah laughs and says, "My goodness, how can we have a baby? My husband's so old." And God says to Abraham, Sarah was laughing, saying, "How can I have a baby? I'm so old." Okay? So Sarah had said, "My husband's so old." But when God tells that story to Abraham, he changed the story a little bit so as not to hurt his feelings. And there are a few other examples too in the Torah. That's like a famous one. So that seems to suggest you can make small changes, and there's like a higher truth, which is we should all be getting along and care about each other's feelings and each other's dignity, and that's maybe even a higher truth than the smaller truth of whatever question you're answering. The Talmud also tells a story, dispute that talks about what you say at a wedding. How do you praise the bride at a wedding? What do you say? And the school of Shammai says just call it like you see it, So and Beit Hillel says no, you say the bride is beautiful, and graceful. So that's a dispute, And Beit Shammai says, "Yeah, yes, call it like it is, you say I don't know, like or big nose, big I don't know, like lopsided ears, right. But Beit Hillel says no, you always say the bride is beautiful, and again Beit Hillel says, look, because on her wedding day, somebody finds you beautiful, and that's what and so it's a higher truth beyond whatever more superficial truth might be first on your mind. So we truth is a value and integrity is a value, avoiding lies is a value, but the higher truth is harmony and peaceful interactions with other people. And peace is more important than truth. I guess that's how truth and peace are often in conflict, and peace is more important than truth. I would put it that way. The Torah prohibits ona'ah, which literally means oppression, and there are two different ways this oppression is interpreted in Jewish law. One is financial oppression, which is either charging too much or paying too little for some object. It's sort of hard to apply that in a contemporary market economy where there is no objective price. The price is whatever the market tells you it is. But even so, if there's like a clear market price and somebody doesn't have full information about that, and you can manipulate somebody into paying more than something's worth or something, that would be a fraudulent sale, even in 2019 in America. But certainly in a pre-modern economy, there was a sense that there are objective prices of which something is worth, and if you pay too little, or you charge too much, the sale can be invalidated, and if it's, or maybe it's not quite that much to invalidate the sale, it's still a prohibition to take advantage of somebody in a commercial transaction. Okay? Again, like we know Adam Smith, so we know that we know that if I'm selling widgets at $5 a widget, it's because it costs me less than $5 to make widgets. And if you're buying widgets at $5 a widget, it's because it's worth more to you than $5. And so both of us are actually more wealthy after we make that transaction. That's like the miracle of, like that's how our economy is built in, that kind of very counterintuitive insight. I think before, the 18th century, like, people didn't have that understanding, and they thought, no, like, there's a winner and there's a loser in every financial situation, and you can't win too much by either, again, paying too little or charging too much for any object. You have to, like, charge a fair price. So that's, that's considered oppression, fraudulent manipulating of a market is oppression, is a prohibition of Torah. There's another form of oppression of the Torah also, which is ona'at dvarim, which is oppressing somebody, causing somebody this distress through your words. And the examples the Talmud gives of what that means are all types of, like, what we would call like insensitive speech that triggers people in ways that are unique to their history. So the examples are, if somebody converts to Judaism, you should not remind them that their grandparents, worshipped idols or whatever. It's the case in the Talmud. Okay? Don't bring up these maybe traumatic elements of somebody's past. It's going to cause pain for them. Another example is somebody who has a relative who was a highwayman and was hanged, for his crimes. Don't use that word. So don't say, "Oh, look at all those fish hanging over there in the fish market." Find a different way to say that. Don't use that word, the word hanged, because that word is a traumatic word. It's a triggering word for this individual because of whatever happened in his past. I think it's I would say it's a Torah obligation to be hypersensitive to the language that you use, that it not trigger somebody else. Not because there's anything wrong about the word. It's not a harmful word, it's not a dirty word, it's not a vulgar word, it's hanged, it's a normal word. But this person, because of their past, because of their traumatic history and their family and background, this word for them is traumatic, and if you know that, don't use the word.
So, you don't know that.
You don't know that, so okay. So sometimes you blunder into hurting people.
They do hurt and you don't know.
So maybe they tell you, and then you know for next time, or they wouldn't tell you and you never know, so that's unfortunate. But if you do know, then you should, I think there's a big, ethos today, like a kind of like anti-PC, like, I'm not gonna, just because you have this, you snowflake, you don't like, I'm gonna use the word hanged and you can eat your avocado toast, I don't care about it, right? But no, actually, the Torah saying is, we should care about other people and not cause them pain. And if there's a word, through no fault of our own, causes somebody else pain, don't use that word, find a different way of saying it. Use the language that makes them comfortable and avoid language that is hurtful to other people. I mean, it's really quite, I think it's quite self-evident, right? Don't use language that is hurtful to other people. I think we kind of maybe implicitly judge, like, well, there's nothing wrong with that word, or why should I have to change for it? We should change for other people. Like, that's what it means to a human being. We modify our behavior to make room for other people in the world. So I think this is also a valuable thing. Let's just be cautious in the words you use and use them, choose them in a way that avoids causing pain to others. D. Okay. Lifnei iver is a term. The Torah literally means lifnei iver in the Torah. The Torah says, "Don't place a stumbling block before the blind," which again literally means like somebody who's walking down the street and they're blind. Don't put something they're going to trip on. Okay. They can't. Don't do something which this person will harm this person. He won't be able to protect himself. This is understood to be symbolic of in the Talmud. This verse means to give bad advice. That'll be harmful, or to enable someone else to sin, which is kind of an extension of that advice. Okay? The classic case in the Talmud is there's two people on two sides of a river, and there's I have some non-kosher food on this side, and you're on that side of the river, and there's a little pulley system, and you say, "Pass that food to me, please." So if I do that, that would be a violation of Lifnei Iver Lifnei Mishal, of placing a stumbling block before the blind, because I'm enabling you to sin by putting the food in the basket and sending it across in the pulley. If we're on the same side of the river, the Talmud says, there's no prohibition, because you could get the food on your own. You don't need me to give the food to you. So enabling someone else to commit a sin is prohibited because of this concept of Lifnei Iver, and this comes up a lot if we live in like a diverse community with lots of people with different value systems and different lifestyles and different ways of understanding the Torah. So it's on us not to be in a situation where we are enabling someone else to sin. Somebody wants to, I don't know, lend me some money to buy a cigarette. I have no money, right? I don't know, right? So if he has his own money, okay, then you're not doing anything. If he doesn't have money, so by giving him the money, you're enabling him to harm himself in a way. You're implicated in that choice he's making because you're enabling him to do something. Now there's also nisayea, which is eating. It's a less, it's a little bit less strict. That's where you're both on the same side of the river, so you're not enabling him to do it, but you're helping him. You're involved in the process. So that's the case would be, you're cooking together some non-kosher food or something like that. So like you're helping him do something that he could do without you, but you're helping him in this way. So, and then Macy is the worst one. That's actually tempting somebody else to sin. You're enticing him, where he wouldn't have done it on his own, and you're not only enabling it, you're actually encouraging it and enticing him. So that's a little less common, but there are, so I mean, there's some of these cases are really not so simple. Like, you have, you interact with Jewish people who are not observant, and they ask you to help them, violate Shabbat, or they ask you to, feed them non-kosher food, or even kosher food, but they're not going to say a blessing. It's like, pass me we'll have a cup of water, please. They're not going to say a bracha before they drink that water, so you're enabling them to sin by giving that water, maybe, some would say. Or what if you invite somebody for a Shabbat meal, they're going to drive to your house? That might also, the invitation might be encouraging them to, so they could drive anyway, they don't have to drive to your house. Some are lenient in some of these cases because they say, let's look holistically. And holistically, it's just good for very observant Jews and non-observant Jews and non-Jews to be friends with each other, and holistically, it's good for them as well that they be friendly with you, so invite them over to your house or give them a glass of water, and even if in that moment there might be some forbidden actions that they undertake that you're implicated in the long run, their being friends with you is going to help make them a better person, hopefully. And there are some, in terms of inviting someone to your house for Shabbat meal, they're going to drive there and drive back, maybe you can invite them over. Some say you can invite them over as long as you offer for them to stay, spend the night, right? So you can have somebody comes over to your house Friday night for dinner. If they listen, you don't have to get back into your car and go home. You could, you want to spend the night, you're welcome to stay. And then it's their choice, it's not your choice, right? Then if they, if they want to, they could stay over. If they choose to go home, that's their choice to choose home. It's not, you're not causing them to sin by saying, thanks for the dinner, now go now, get back into your car and go home, because you're giving them the choice. So there are lenient opinions on that, but there are some people who are strict. So that's all, that whole debate sort of revolves around the definition of this prohibition of not placing a stumbling block before the blind. You're on two sides of the river, count some non-kosher food, you put it in the basket, send it over, I'm not implicated in what you've done. Should we take on Rule 6? Any questions on what it's about? Much faster, right?
I do have kind of a comment, but I don't want to take too much time.
Do your comments and we'll either get
okay.
something else or not.
When you say speech, does that also apply to thought?
No.
So what you think, and just going back to when I was a child, I was always told to be careful even what you think, because God knows everything, so the all-knowing, and that's what my dad, and he used to say, life and death is by the tongue, so be careful what, well, I don't know where that came from.
It sounds like it's from Proverbs, but that's saying something. Thought, I think, is a little less, I don't think you're responsible for your thoughts in that same way. I think if you cultivate certain thoughts and you indulge in them and you are kind of, fantasizing about how you're gonna, steal from somebody else, or you're fantasizing about your revenge fantasy against your, whatever, that would be a problem. If you're kind of really, or some covetous thought, if you're really indulging it and planning how I'm gonna get the thing, and how I'm gonna, have my revenge on this person, that would be problematic. Those are problematic thoughts, or those thoughts themselves, can define your character in ways that are problematic, that you would want to, work on and improve and refine your character. But in terms of the actual prohibition of slanderous speech or harmful speech or derogatory speech or gossip, I think you actually have to say it in
Okay.
some way.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's a good question. Roman number 6 is actually a longer topic. We should look at it. Let's get some books out, and then we'll look at these. Okay, I'll be right back.
Okay.
We have like 10 minutes, so.
It's my question that Thomas picked out of the schedule here.
It's fine, not your fault.
20 seconds.
My 20-second question here for me.
Because I remember learning that, I don't want to say you're wrong, but that Judaism is more of a result-based religion rather than the way you're thinking and getting there. So I want to ask you,
That's an interesting.
yeah, like basically, I think I don't want to say it and then be wrong. You get something like that. So when he comes back, I'll ask. But Rabbi, is it true that I just remember it from back in the day? But like, for example, like, it's an extreme example, but thinking about killing someone is not necessarily a sin. Basically, that Judaism is a more result-driven religion.
Yeah, I think
the process.
I think if you just think about I don't think it's per se. I mean, I don't think it seems like a good thing to do. I mean, if you
Yes.
I think a fleeting thought is one thing. I think a sort of thought that you cultivate and indulge and invest in, I think, is something else. So maybe that's what I would. Once you're planning methods, that would probably, be
Good scare tactic as a child, though, when your parents say, be careful what you think, be careful what you say.
Yeah,
That was probably to scare us, I'm thinking.
or maybe it's your thoughts aren't crimes, but they still determine your character. So you don't want to be the type of person who has violent, harmful, destructive thoughts, but that's different from like the crime itself. So maybe you deal with them in two different. You're evaluated, and you evaluate yourself on what you do and your actions, and then you also evaluate yourself on like, what's my character? Who am I as a person? What's my character? Okay. We say blessing before we eat and after we eat. The Torah says actually I have to say a blessing, grace after meals after eating a meal, and Rabbi said also as well, you have to say a blessing before anything goes into your mouth, before you enjoy the world, get any pleasure from the world, you have to say a blessing. This is sort of the way that we express gratitude to God, and in that way earn a right to enjoy the world, right? Otherwise it's like, Talmud compares it to stealing. To eat something without saying the blessing first. Like that's the blessing is what gives you a right to benefit from the world. So let's just see what these are. Do this if you want these, you could take these if you want. If you don't have something, a book similar to this one, you should you'd love to take. So let's find the blessings before meals. Let's see. Okay, so look at page 91. This is the blessing. The blessing is a sort of a core building block of Jewish liturgy. The definition of blessing starts with Baruch, with benediction. Blessed is God, and these blessings, some are short, some are long. They are the building blocks of much of Jewish liturgy. So we have blessings for food. We all start Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. Blessed are you, Lord our God, King of the universe. That's sort of definitional. That's what makes it a blessing. And then, depending on what the food item is, you would say give it a blessing. So for bread, hamotzi lechem min haaretz, who brings forth bread from the earth. For other non-bread things made with grain, borei minim is a note. For fruits that grows on trees, borei priya eitz. For vegetables that grow from the ground, or fruits that grow not from trees but from the ground, like bananas or strawberries or melons, or vegetables, borei priya adama, brings forth fruit from the earth. For wine, borei priya hagafen. And for everything else, which would be chocolate or steak or some cheese or tea, shakol miya b'dvaro, who brought forth everything with his word. And there are other blessings for other things, but these are the food blessings. These are the before blessings we say on food. Everything you eat falls into one of these categories. This is sort of like an important thing about becoming an observant Jew, is sort of learning all the things that you eat. Which category of blessing do I recite before eating it? If it's a meal with bread, you only say the blessing on bread, and that covers everything else you eat in that meal. In ancient times, bread was not just like, a source of carbohydrates. It was your plate and your silverware too. Okay, you have a bowl of like something, food, something, mush, something like mush, and your bread would be what you would use to dip in and eat it with. So you really like it was a substantial part of the meal was the bread. It doesn't really have that function anymore for most meals. Nonetheless, a meal with bread, you see the blessing for the bread at the beginning of the meal, and you don't see any other blessing the rest of the meal. If you're having something else, you might have to make more than one blessing. If you have a Caesar salad, you have to say a blessing for the lettuce and a blessing for the chicken or whatever. Okay, you know, because those are. Unless you want to say the chicken is like really minute, it's just like adding flavor to the salad, which is not really the case for a good Caesar salad. But okay, so those are the blessings before food, and again, this is something that as you embark on a journey of becoming an observant Jew, like these blessings becoming second nature is important. There are little apps you can have on your phone so that you can look up whatever food item it is and know which blessing to say before you eat it. Over time, the foods that you typically eat, you'll learn what the blessings are. But here you have them as well. Yes?
Are you saying these out loud, in thought, in silence?
They should be said out loud, but not necessarily loud enough for anyone else to hear.
So it's a personal, I mean, it's if you were in a group setting, obviously, like Shabbat, you do the prayers together, but
Yeah,
is this
so
more of my personal blessing?
There's no need for anyone else to be able to hear
Okay,
it, but you should actually move your mouth and actually say it.
Okay.
So you should be able to hear it, even if no one else can. It's nice if other people can hear it, because other people can hear it, they can say Amen after your bracha, which is nice for them. So that's not a bad thing. I think that's, in more Orthodox circles, I think it's pretty common for people to say brachot out loud, for other people to say Amen, and sort of just to be really like just out and open with their blessings. I think in a little more modern settings, people are a little more private about their brachot and a little more quick about it.
Okay.
There's actually this Israeli movie that came out maybe 15 years ago. And there's a scene where, like the actor, it takes place in a religious community, and apparently I was told it took many, many takes before the actor could get the scene right, where he walks into the house and takes a pickle and says a blessing and eats it, because to be able to say it in such a casual way, it took a lot of practice, because he didn't grow up saying blessings, and so he thought, he's like, oh, I'm going to take a pickle, I'm going to look at it, I'm going to contemplate it, and say the blessing with great devotion, and in fact, for better or for worse, most people in in religious communities just say it second nature without maybe giving it enough thought as they should. But it's a spiritual opportunity, right, to thank God for everything you're eating, and so it's worth pausing and saying it well. And there's also blessings after food. If we eat a meal with bread, we say a full grace after meals. That begins on page 59 and goes all the way to page 75. Although the secret is, the bottom of page 70 is actually the end of the official grace after meals. Everything after page 70 is just extra. And it's very common for people to say, but just you should know that it really ends on page 70. So that's for a full meal with bread. A meal that contains bread, we say the full grace after meals. If it's a meal that did not contain bread, but did contain one of the 7 types of growing things the land of Israel is praised for in the Torah, we say this blessing on page 77, which has 3 different forms, one for grain products, one for fruits, and one for wine, but not any fruit, not any grain, just the grains and the fruits that the land of Israel is praised for in the Torah. Okay, wheat, barley, spelt, oats, or rye, or olives, dates, grapes, figs, or pomegranates. That's it. Other than that, we wouldn't say this blessing on page 77. We would say instead the blessing on page 80, the bottom of page 80, which is like the catch-all after blessing. It's short, and we say that for the end of a meal which contains anything else. Steak, a baked potato, a cup of coffee, okay, a candy bar. Would say this shorter after blessing on page 80. We'll pause here. Maybe we'll review this next time we meet, but let's pause here because Mincha's going to begin. You're welcome to stay for Mincha, and we'll figure out when our next meeting. I think we can do actually. I think we can meet again. Not. I think August 19th. Monday, August 19th. We could do let's do a couple weeks from now. So let's try for 7. Okay, try for 7, and we'll meet until Mincha on August 19th.
Okay.
Great. Okay, thank you.
Can we take these or
You're welcome.
or can I bring them back?
You can take it as long as you want to use it. We have many here, and
Okay.
if you use it, you can use yours.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
That's it. His mom got me a book with the blessings for all the holidays, but not for the actual foods.
Oh, great.
It has the foods.
Oh, does it? Oh, it
It
is.
should.
That one's small, you want to stick it in your pocketbook, you can carry it around.
Yeah.
If you like it, use it, that's right. Yeah, it is.